Hello and welcome to this presentation on musical thinking as a model and a taxonomy. As part of societies worldwide, music is a universal feature of human culture. Regardless of genre or style, people enjoy wonderful musical performances as moving, emotional, and memorable experiences. While music is remarkably entertaining in this context, audiences often overlook the related cognitive value associated with thought processes. This presentation explores and combines that element in a five-dimensional, holistic model of musical thinking as the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor engagement with musical experiences. These are the three well-established domains of psychology: cognition or thinking, psychomotor or doing, and affect or feeling. As shown in later slides, Bloom provided the most extensive research in the cognitive area. In the affective domain, Bloom and Rothball collaborated to provide a taxonomy of levels, while Simpson and Harrow provided research in the psychomotor domain. By considering music teaching and learning in terms that reflect this multidimensional nature of music, this approach represents a new direction in music education. It describes the creative and responsive processes that occur preceding, during, and following musical experiences. The resultant model and taxonomy for musical thinking offers teachers and students a theoretical framework with practical applications. This presentation includes an examination of established and emergent research on student engagement and interdisciplinary arts education as practical examples of the model in action. By embracing musical thinking as a combination of knowing, doing, and feeling, this model articulates and enhances meaningful multimodal musical experiences with practical suggestions for memorable and effective music teaching and learning. We begin with an orientation to learning and teaching music. These are deceivingly complicated enterprises. On the surface, showing someone how to play or sing well is relatively simple. Observing, imitating, and practicing the skills are direct ways to replicate the teacher's performance. Below the surface, however, understanding, analyzing, and reflecting on musical experiences requires critical and creative thinking. On a deeper level, developing ways to engage students in the process of transmission or sharing musical knowledge and skills is an age-old and continuing challenge for music educators. This approach embraces musical thinking as a combination of knowing, doing, and feeling music to provide an avenue toward the goal of rewarding and successful musical experiences. Such an approach also presents music in ways that integrate other disciplines authentically and continually engage the learner. Now, for some definitions. For the purposes of this presentation, musical thinking describes the range of cognitive, psychomotor, and affective processes that occur preceding, during, and following musical experiences. For performers and listeners alike, these processes allow for meaningful multimodal engagement with music. While our understanding of the physical properties of sound and silence are well established, their meanings are not. Pythagoras and other ancient Greeks, as well as figures from classical China and India, articulated much of what we now know about the physical properties of sound and their relationships to the natural world. In contrast, how we make meaning from experiencing those acoustical phenomena is an ever-evolving pursuit. In this way, learners engage with and reflect on actual musical experiences instead of the related history, theory, or politics. In these ways, listeners can uncover the most important and personal musical meanings. An examination of the theoretical framework for this new model begins by conceptualizing music on an elemental level as a language of sound and silence. Its components are frequency, amplitude, and duration. In standard musical terms, those are pitch, dynamic, and rhythm. Music is a mental product, interpreted by people and based on prior experiences. Without that interpretation, the raw material of sound and silence mean nothing. In other words, music is what we make of it. More accurately, then, the perception of sounds and silence as musical events itself forms the basis for musical thinking. Also important from a theoretical background is understanding the term thinking. Typically, thinking is termed a cognitive skill, but thinking in fact encompasses other psychological domains, such as affect and motor skills. The quality and character of thinking depends on both context and purpose. Because thinking is intricately associated with content, it is logical and appropriate to include not only the cognitive but also the psychomotor and affective domains in an understanding of musical thinking. In practice, successful musicians use all these aspects in concert, combining them in ways to understand the composer's intent and then to express those emotions through practiced performance. In other words, thinking is often understood as a mental process while feeling belongs to the sensory domains. In the arts, however, ideas are often the result of both thoughtful and feelingful experiences. For example, in the Silver Burdette series Music, the authors wrote, "Sometimes when you listen, the music fills your thoughts and your feelings. That's the way composers and performers hope you will listen to their musically. Because thoughts are not emotion-free, nor are emotions thoughtless. Both the affect and the cognition play a part in higher-order thinking." Learning is a complex task, and maximizing the thinking learners do as they grow and develop is a central challenge for educators who seek to engage students sequentially with developmentally appropriate thinking exercises. A taxonomy is a classification of components into an ordered or hierarchical system that indicates their relative relationships. The hierarchical levels of these taxonomies often serve as a measure of the level of thinking experiences that teachers plan for their students. Teachers work to engage their students in thinking at the highest levels of the taxonomy, as is developmentally appropriate. In the United States, teachers have become familiar with cognitive taxonomies and general thinking, although the less familiar affective and psychomotor taxonomies also influence musical thinking. The taxonomies shown here provide a hierarchical structure for broad domains of thinking, feeling, and doing. They serve as parallels for the new model of musical thinking. The new five-dimensional model of holistic musical thinking contains both teaching and learning dimensions. It encompasses the three traditional psychological areas of learning with two central aspects of teaching. As such, this model draws its roots in actual musical practice and musical transmission. By considering the impact of musical experiences in terms of each of these domains side by side, the model provides a holistic view from a more well-rounded perspective. Simply put, memorable musical events have an emotional impact on the participants. At the same time, understanding the related history and structure of any musical experience adds to its appreciation and enjoyment. Finally, the act of responding physically to music as a listener or actually making the music as a performer provides another layer of experience that literally moves people to the music. Intersecting with the three learning domains are the two teaching dimensions of engagement and integration. Both of these play essential roles in learner-centered and interdisciplinary instruction. As shown in this diagram, music sits at the center of cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. In the model, each of the three domains is distinct, yet musical experiences regularly impact all three of these modes. The graphic also shows music with two hemispheres of teaching, subject integration and learner engagement. As with any model, the intention is to better understand phenomena and not to address all eventualities. As such, this model depicts how the three traditional psychological domains can combine with the two fundamental teaching practices to describe the complex experiences of teaching and learning music. The taxonomy for musical thinking to accompany the five-dimensional model has levels reminiscent of the three traditional psychological domains. At the same time, each of the levels contains elements from each of the three domains to reflect the multidimensional nature of music and of the model. Moving from acquiring information by listening and observing, learners advance to relating their experiences with previous knowledge. When constructing their own meaning from musical experiences, they make sense of the music. As they probe and explore new ideas, they seek to find solutions to given problems or challenges. Advancing to envision new ideas, learners plan their own actions or develop theoretical insights. Finally, they resolve the corresponding issues or challenges for themselves and create, produce, or perform to generate new musical experiences. The first of two teaching dimensions is subject integration. Since the 1990s, innovative educators around the world have designed curricula that integrate knowledge and activities from arts and non-art subjects to address standards in those respective disciplines. Both in the United States and internationally, cross-curricular projects have demonstrated success in academic learning. Co-equal integration offers a curriculum centered on music as an equal partner with the other subjects to achieve learning in both areas. This type of instruction results in significant learning gains among general classroom students, as shown by written, oral, and kinesthetic outcomes. As such, integrated arts education presents understanding on a totally different level of thinking that is multi-layered, symbiotic with other learning. The second of two teaching dimensions is learner engagement. For the purpose of this discussion, learner engagement is the level of concentration, sustained on-task behavior, and focus that learners demonstrate. Engagement in learning leads to more successful educational outcomes. This pedagogical certainty underscores the importance of engaging students in their own learning. Because learners naturally exhibit more engagement when given more autonomy and control over their own learning, a more learner-centered instructional experience is necessarily more engaging than teacher-centered instruction. The idea of learner-centered engagement is linked with new directions in music education. For music, the lack of learner engagement is often accompanied by lack of participation, especially in elective ensemble classes. Disengaged learners leave the group or depend on the instructor for all the musical decisions. Implications of this model of musical thinking are indicative of a richer and more complex response to musical experiences. As advocated by Webster and Richardson, music teachers must encourage children to think more deeply and more imaginatively about music to engage students if real music learning is to occur. To embrace the multidimensional and holistic nature of musical experiences, educators need to understand musical thinking and to make thinking musical. Beginning from the foundations of observation and exploration, teaching music has the opportunity to engage learners cognitively, affectively, and physically. This model represents a new direction in music education, and to advance in this direction, it is essential to be clear about what the main educational aims are in music. Some goals include developing musical independence, while others champion precise performance skills, and still others foster creative capacities. The next step may be for music educators to ask themselves, what kind of thinking is the most musical, and how can we foster those thinking skills? Thank you for your attention to this presentation.